these days to feel disconnected. We're pulled in so many different directions, and that can leave us feeling incredibly fragmented. But together, we can grow more connected to ourselves and to each other. And that is what my new podcast is all about, coming home to our wholeness. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, I'm Megan Gailey.
And I'm CJ Toledano, and we're the hosts of The Greatest,
a sports podcast that invites your favorite personalities on to rank and debate who and what really is the greatest.
We've even had NBA Hall of Famer Reggie Miller on to ask him what are the greatest Reggie Miller moments.
We are forever linked. I'm honored to be on this podcast. Thank you guys so much. Again, for people, you guys don't know who these two are.
Reggie Miller is also my best friend.
Sure.
Listen and follow The Greatest on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a Tuesday. I'm in a splendid mood live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we're on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. I feel slender. I feel energized. I had a great night of sleep. Everything is working today. I feel fantastic. Joy looks fantastic, ready to go. Joy, you're from Pittsburgh. There was a power outage there last night. The internet was down because I didn't hear from a single Steeler fan for 8 hours.
Listen, we've got issues, guys. 412-724. We've got some problems. Let's talk about it.
All right, it's great to have you in on a Tuesday, my last week, last day for a while. Joy's in tomorrow with Nick Wright. So let's talk about outliers. LeBron and Tom Brady are outliers. Like they're in their 20th year, 18th year, and they're still as good as they've been in the last 5 years. In fact, I thought LeBron last year looked better than he looked in 4 or 5 years. Why? Because in life, what you put into your body, you get out. And LeBron and Tom Brady had been meticulous with their bodies. And now it pays real dividends as they age. You know, your body, you can live on Taco Bell and 4 hours sleep when you're 21. But when you're 38, 39, 40 as a pro athlete, bro, it catches up to you. I mean, Michael Jordan is unbelievable. But Michael was a cigar smoking, wine drinking, steak eating, card playing, no sleeping maniac, and in the end, he couldn't jump. And he's Michael Jordan. Big Ben's reputation, and this is why I picked him for 8-8 and 7-9. Joy is my witness. I kept saying, surgery for those who are in great shape is different for those like Big Ben. He has never been a grinder. Jay Glazer has a mailbag for a subscription service called The Athletic. And Glazer's got a lot of friendly NFL contacts. He's not somebody that bangs away at players. But during the summer, somebody asked him about Big Ben. He said, first of all, let's not put the words fitness and Ben together. They're allergic to each other. There is no fitness in Ben. His idea of a great off-season workout is a yoga session, playing golf, and drinking beer. That's not a shot. That is what I have talked about on this show for years. In this instance, Glazer and I share sources. That's not a shot on him. Ben is the greatest backyard football player in league history. But this goes for everybody. Actors, landscapers, school teachers. How you treat your body. I can tell when you're 55 or 60. And as a pro athlete, I can tell when you're 35. Big Ben, right now, it's over. Like Drew Brees has some limitations. And Brady certainly does. But those two also brought sort of a cerebral pre-snap excellence to the position. Big Ben's always played this thing like it's him and a bunch of Pennsylvania guys in the backyard. And he's the best ever at it. He wasn't one of the great pre-snap guys, one of the great audible guys, one of the off-season workout guys. It was, give me a ball, give me a couple of deep threats. and let's go. LFG. The problem is Pittsburgh is built to be Big Ben in 27. They got great receivers. They got unbelievable receivers. He can't throw a deep ball. I mean, it's bad. First play of the game, he can't throw a deep ball. And so, listen, Tom Brady is an outlier. Peyton Manning fell off a cliff late 30s. Eli last 4 years was weak. Phillip Rivers, probably a year left. Drew Brees, he'll be into broadcasting. That's the way it works. LeBron and Brady are outliers because they have put so much into their bodies. Both put millions a year. I've said Russell Wilson is very much LeBron and Brady. You can see he is building a brand to play until his 40s. He puts $1.5 million. I have some connections to Russell. He puts about $1.5 million a year, and he's young, not old guy. And here's the other thing. And listen, I know Ben had surgery, and you can push back and go, well, this surgery, go ask doctors, go ask anybody. Like, the better shape you're in, the faster you recover from surgeries. Big Ben was very good early in the season, but as the season is extending, it's not that he's struggling, he's awful. Maybe it's Sam Darnold. Maybe it's draft picks. It is awful. And so I think this morning you have to be, it's the elephant in the room. They got to move. They got to move off this thing. Because this is a 16-game schedule. And if you're Pittsburgh, your standards are 2 or 3 playoff games after that. This is no longer a 19-game quarterback. Maybe you draft somebody and you give Ben a couple of weeks off in October and November. I'm not sure if he'd like that. But, you can walk around. You can walk around to the mall and look and say who took care of themselves and who just was born good looking. You know what I mean? Y'all see that person. They're great looking in high school and college. They party hard. All of a sudden they get a little older and they're still kind of good looking and stuff, but it's like, they stayed up late. They closed a few bars. And I think with Big Ben, that's always been the thing. And he's just always been a world-class talent, a backyard football player, and it's caught up to him. And, the surgery's not easy for anybody. Nobody is saying that. But LeBron got hurt 2 years ago. He's better now than he was 4 years ago. I mean, it's just he bounced off that injury like nothing I've ever seen. Well, it's not osmosis. It's not a coincidence. There's a reason LeBron bounced off that injury. So here's Big Ben after.
I'm not consistent enough. Which affects the offense because the ball's in my hand every play.
And what is the level of frustration and concern right now as you head in the last 2 weeks?
High frustration.
Sam Darnold, draft picks, one of them, it's time to make a move. To this, the NBA begins in earnest tonight. Now, lots of fans loved MJ more than they currently love LeBron. I get it. There was a lot to like about MJ. He was great. He was glamorous. He was cool. His commercials, he was good looking. He had that kind of, American step on the throat thing we love for our athletes. And a lot of people say the NBA was better 20 years ago. Well, I don't necessarily disagree. It had more layers. It was physical. Players really hated each other. The rivalries were intense. I mean, I get it. The Pistons, the Bulls, the Lakers, the Celtics, and Bird, and tackling, and I get it. I think I like the NBA probably more than 20 years ago. I think the players are now more talented, but it was very tribal and very intense, and there was a lot to love about it. But the people that loved the NBA 20 years ago and love Michael Jordan more than LeBron, they believe the debate is over, and it is not over with LeBron and Michael Jordan. It's not just beginning, it's not in the middle. There's 3 things LeBron has going for him. Number 1, his stats and production will crush MJ with just 2 to 3 more seasons. Number 2, LeBron's now got titles in 3 destinations Michael couldn't even win in a second. And number 3, Anthony Davis. And this is the factor. When you look around at the argument for second best player in the NBA, and this has happened really quickly. Giannis. He's now locked into Milwaukee, a place that won't get free agents. James Harden. Increasingly weird. Kawhi. Alienates teammates, load management, leadership questions are legit. Steph Curry. Injuries, and Clay is hurt. Kevin Durant. Ditto on the injuries, and I, for one, am a real cynic on KD and Kyrie being, Tom Hanks and Rita Hanks for 40 years working perfectly in harmony. I have my issues about that relationship. Very quickly, the number 2 player in the league is Anthony Davis, and he doesn't have any of those issues. We don't question his leadership. We don't question now his durability. He doesn't appear to be difficult to play with. We have a situation now where the second best player in the league for most of LeBron's career, let's be honest, all of it, was a threat to LeBron. Folks, 4 years ago, you were telling me KD's better than LeBron. You kept yelling and screaming. And there's the Westbrook and the Harden and Embiid. And now, all the twos are in these situations, leadership, mental, physical, hard to play with, unglamorous markets, except one of them, Anthony Davis. And from the first week, and I don't know what it is about their personalities, not only does LeBron have the second best player, it is like they're brothers. It's like they've played together for 15 years. LeBron loved D-Wade, still does. I always thought that was a weird, clunky basketball fit. LeBron and AD is literally perfect. And LeBron's entire career has been about, who's the next LeBron, who's going to challenge LeBron. The second now, to me, and I don't even think there's a question, he now plays with, they fit together, and the Lakers have upgraded. Listen, part of Fox Sports' growth has been ESPN's decline. Part of LeBron's dominance has been the same thing. I have so many questions about the twos, about Kawhi, about Giannis, about Steph, about Harden, about KD, about... The only one I don't is Anthony Davis. So I do think the Lakers should win, will win, and should be favored. It's great to have you in today. I was watching that Steelers game last night. I considered strongly, but that's not who I am. I considered strongly going on a 5-minute Instagram rant, and I thought, cliche, no reason. Let's just let this thing bake here. But I do have a question for all those mean Steeler fans who hurt my feelings when I simply suggested you can't win playoff games with that BB gun offense. That's next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
This episode is brought to you by Splash Financial. Don't let past student loans drown your future. Make a splash. Splash Financial is your student loan refinance destination, designed to help save you money on student loans. Their innovative technology gives you quick access to a best-in-class network of lenders, so you can get great rates and achieve your financial goals. It takes just 2 minutes to get a rate quote and doesn't impact your credit score. So what are you waiting for? Splash even offers a low-rate guarantee. Go to splashfinancial.com/iHeart to start saving today. That's splashfinancial.com/iHeart and start making a splash.
My name is Jamie Loftus, host of shows like My Year in Mensa and The Bechtelcast. I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works in American history. The story and its main character have been adapted, misinterpreted, and twisted over the years by Hollywood, by fashion, by fans of the book, and by the author himself. Lolita has gone from the tragic story of an abused 13-year-old girl to a cultural narrative that frames her as the seductress and to blame. So how did this all happen? It's a messy story. This is a story about a girl named Dolores, and I think she's gotten lost over the years. I'll be speaking with literary scholars, with experts on abuse, and with the actors who have played the part of Lolita and more. So let's get to the bottom of it, for her. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
New app coming. New streaming service called Discovery Plus. Starts next year, U.S. only. Real-life entertainment, favorite brands, exclusive originals, Discovery Plus. Just in such a good mood today. Going on a little siesta, a little sabbatical here for a few days.
Yeah, today's your Friday.
Yeah, it's just, I told you my dad took Wednesdays off. He was a doctor, small-town doctor. So every other day was Friday. Tuesday was Friday, and Friday was Friday. So he took Wednesday off. He worked his doc Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then he'd work an occasional Saturday. And it was like, his theory was, every other day's Friday. You're just in a good mood going to work.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I like the Fridays off. 4-day work week.
Boom. We're both on that.
Yeah.
So this happens all the time. Right now in our sports world, most of the big brands are winning. The Dodgers are a big brand, they're winning. And the New York Yankees are not winning a World Series, but they're a very good team. Alabama football, Oklahoma football, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Duke basketball, Kansas basketball. Lakers are really good. Celtics are at least viable. Most of our big brands in America are winning. One is not, as much as we think in the last 15, 20 years, the Dallas Cowboys. And we kind of roll our eyes and mock the Dallas Cowboys. They don't have a Pro Bowl currently. Like, ooh. What has Pittsburgh done in the last decade? I want you to think about this. They've had 20 different players make the Pro Bowl in the decade. New England's had 19. New England's got 16 playoff wins. Steelers have 3. It's been a decade of brand over reality, underachieving, and disappointment. They have got in 10 years no Super Bowls, 3 playoff wins, and 2 wins over the New England Patriot dynasty. Their 3 playoff wins were over A.J. McCarron, Matt Moore, and Alex Smith, and 1 they didn't score a touchdown. They lost playoff games to Tim Tebow and Blake Bortles. The last time they beat a top quarterback in a playoff game, and this morning we kind of wrestled with this, it was Joe Flacco, and he was good-ish, and dropped off a cliff quickly. We kind of roll our eyes at the Dallas Cowboys because of Jerry's vanity, and, he holds a press conference on local radio. And I think we all respect Kevin Colbert, the Rooney family, and they've certainly had great dignity the entire organization's history. But if you've got 20 different players who are Pro Bowlers over a decade, in the last decade, 13 teams have more playoff wins. 13. They're right in the middle of the pack. And here's another thing, there's no excuse for this. Whereas the Dallas Cowboys have had their issues, Philadelphia's well run. The Giants have Super Bowls. So does Washington. The Steelers have had the gift of having the Browns and the Bengals for the last decade in their division. I mean, that's 4-0 every year, right off the top. You don't get that in Dallas with Philadelphia, the Giants, and Washington. Although Washington certainly had their share of dysfunction. So, I think we're getting to a point, it's not a cheap shot. What have they been the last decade? It just feels like underachievement. Here we go again. Derailed late in the season. These are not cheap shots. I went this morning and looked it up. There are 3 playoff wins in a decade. A.J. McCarron, Matt Moore, and Alex Smith. And losses to Tebow and Bortles. That's just for the Steelers not good enough. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
I've been saying it for the longest. And they had their franchise quarterback.
That's right. They had it there.
A 2-time Super Bowl winning franchise quarterback.
Yeah. So
and you had Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, and a 2-time Super Bowl winning franchise quarterback in that time.
So in that time, you in that decade had easily the best quarterback in the division for probably 8 of it. You had the best quarterback for 10 years. Flacco had a couple of years where he was fairly high end, but he wasn't Ben.
Right.
So, there's a lot of things that have worked in your favor, and that's all I get.
Time for a little accountability, guys. So the Dolphins currently have the 7th spot in the AFC playoffs, but the Ravens are right there threatening to bump them out. And the Raiders also have an outside chance to get in with 2 games left this season. So Dolphins head coach Brian Flores knows how big this weekend's matchup against Vegas is for his team.
Our playoffs is this week against the Raiders. When you're playing in meaningful games, there's a little bit added anxiety or stress, if you want to call it that, but it's good to kind of go through that and realize you're just still playing football.
This is a really interesting situation with the AFC playoff picture because we've talked about it this week. The Dolphins or the Ravens, one of them is not going to make the playoffs, and that's really insane.
Okay, let's say what we said yesterday.
It feels more dramatic if the Ravens don't make the playoffs.
The Ravens are going to go 11-5 and potentially not make the playoffs. You tell me, name a team in NFL history. Hey, let's go 25 years. As good as the Ravens at 11-5 and not make the playoffs. They'll be the greatest team I can remember. making the playoffs. We added a playoff spot in both conferences, and the Ravens at 11-5.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
But I think it's great that the AFC is so competitive.
Oh, I absolutely love it, and I'm Brian Flores is just.
He's a star.
He is Belichick. He sounds like him at pressers. Like I
was thinking when he was talking, I'm like, there's a couple people who I really would not like to be scolded by. Brian Flores is one of them. Belichick definitely one of them. I don't think I'd like a very serious talking to by Gruden. Like we like Gruden, he's very like charismatic, but I think if he was really mad, you would be uncomfortable.
I believe the line on this game confuses me. I think Miami's going to win handily, and I don't understand the line, -2.5. I don't understand. Miami is playing better every weekend. The Raiders are struggling. One defense is top 3, one is bottom 3.
Well, it is a road game.
Well, yeah, but does that even count anymore this year?
I just think you just factor in the travel. They are still traveling.
I don't
Obviously,
understand.
You don't have the crowds, and I'm sure that environment will be much different when there are crowds there. But it's still travel, so there's that. I don't know. I mean, I tend to lean that way as well. But this is technically like a playoff game. For the Dolphins, so there is a little bit of added pressure and anxiety. They still have a lot of young players. So
and Miami, I think Miami, I'd have to check, Joey, they're getting some players back for this game. They were dinged up for the Patriots.
Yeah, so they have the Raiders, they're at the Raiders, and then their final game is at the Bills, and they kind of need to win both of those. So Doug Peterson announced that Jalen Hurts will be the starter again this week against the Cowboys. However, he would not commit to Hurts for the rest of the season. He said he obviously was sticking with Hurts for the next game, but he was only focused on this week. I don't know why he won't just say Hurts is the starter for the rest of the season.
Because I think he's trying to massage the Wentz situation. Instead of just breaking up, it's you've still got a shot, and it makes the temperature in the room changes a little if you manage it like, okay, one more week of Hurts instead of we're going with Hurts. Then Wentz literally can't dodge the Philadelphia media, and it's just a circus.
It does cause a little bit more. I'm not quite as finesse as that, but he also wants to see how Hurts and the rest of the team respond after last week's loss. But even though they lost last week, it wasn't a loss I felt bad about. And I don't like to do that because I don't like moral victories. But I think when you're in a situation like this, you have to have a little bit more perspective.
Yeah.
Now, from a fan's perspective, that was a great game and a great watch, but it wasn't like Hurts wasn't there. He put the ball right where it needs to be.
Yeah.
3 plays in a row at the end of the game to win it. They are at the Cowboys, and then they have Washington to finish out this season, and then we'll find out week 17 who won the NFC East if you're still interested in that. So the Heat are no longer in the running for James Harden.
Thank you.
Miami has reportedly decided to end their pursuit of the Rockets' star. The two teams are said to only have had casual conversations about making a deal, and the Heat couldn't match what the Rockets were asking for in return. Especially with draft assets. I'm so confused as to how this is actually going to end up playing out. Because Houston has all the leverage here.
All I know is this. Miami is so well constructed and so well run, and Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra are so committed. I don't think James Harden deserves Miami.
Oh, I don't think he's a good fit either. Now listen, could the Heat use his scoring? Of course. If he was a personality that fit with the Heat culture, then this would be worth whatever the Rockets were asking for the next 2 years. Go all in, and you have an opportunity to win the East again and get to the finals. And really, they lacked scoring in the finals this year. Like, they needed those extra points. But Miami is a very particular place. It's a very fun place that you have to be a serious person in, or you're going to fall apart.
Thank you. And again,
you can thrive there.
NFL GMs talk about this all the time. If you're in a port city, like a New Orleans or a New York or a LA, Miami, drafting mature players is kind of the lean. That you have to consider this stuff.
Mature and also really hard-working people. Like, you can be distracted. You can take your time away from the game, but you have to be a hard worker.
Okay, so go look at your brother and Zach Taylor and your brother and...
Zach Thomas, yeah.
Zach Thomas. Okay, so if you look at your brother, Jason Taylor, and Zach, if you go look at the guys that have really succeeded, they've been kind of football-obsessed or married early or mature early guys. That's the history of the Miami Dolphins.
Or very, very desperate and aware of what happens if they don't succeed. They were also drafted by Jimmy Johnson, a very, very serious person. Pat Riley is a serious person. best players in the league. It's not worked ever. He's a number 2, and everyone keeps trying to make him into a number 1. That's not how it's going to work. And he's certainly not going to be the number 1 with the Heat and Jimmy Butler.
Enjoy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd
I am
News.
going to have a number for you at the top of the hour in my herd hierarchy, which I'm obsessed with. It's just a stupid top 10 list. I'm obsessed with it, and I get more hate mail on it than anything. I'm going to give you a stat you're not even going to believe. You're not even going to believe about a player in the NFL. Somebody that is believable is Kevin Clark, NFL writer of The Ringer, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. Okay, listen, everybody ages different, and generally speaking, Kevin, if you take care of yourself, your mind, your body, you age a little better. And then there's those who are just naturally gifted. They get old and they fall off cliffs. And we've all had somebody in our life like that, a cousin, whoever. You know, Jay Glazer's somebody, I've talked to him about this on and off the air, which is Ben was not exactly known as a grinder in the offseason, and I watch him. Kevin, I don't see him churning it around. I understand the surgery, but don't they need a quarterback?
I looked at Ben's completion percentage chart today to look at what he was doing, and I felt like a scientist in a disaster movie. Like, I wanted to run around screaming, look at this. This is the last thing you see before you die. He was 1 of 13 when throwing 10 yards down the field. He just looked awful. He couldn't complete passes in any meaningful way. I don't know what you do here. The Steelers, the NFL looked this up. The Steelers have now, as an 11-win team, no team has ever had 11 wins and lost to 2 teams as bad as the football team and the Bengals. It's never happened in history. So something is wrong. The 86 Jets had a similar situation where they started 10-1, and they ended up basically losing out. I just don't know how you fix this. Ben can't use huge chunks of the field. This is bad. You know, I think the bar is so low for what they need from the offense with the skill position players they have, and the fact they create turnovers at the rate they do, and TJ Watt's a superstar, Minka Fitzpatrick is a ball hawk, a top tier player. He only needs to do a little bit, and he can't do it right now. And I don't know how you proceed.
So I had Jimmy Johnson on yesterday, the Hall of Fame coach. I had Trent Dilfer on, who does all this quarterback stuff. And, you know, Jimmy's like, I think I'd build a fortress. And just give Darnold one more year. And then if it doesn't work, the next guy comes in with a real football team. Trent Dilfer's like, the gap between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, I've seen him up close. It's not as great as you think. Okay, so they're not getting Trevor Lawrence. Your thought, your sources, your belief on what do the Jets do with the number 2 pick?
I think they do everything they can, and then they eventually take Justin Fields. So what I mean by that is the first thing they do is auction off the pick, say, does anybody want to give us the Herschel Walker deal for the number 2 overall pick, some quarterback needy team? And then they look at the quarterback market. Is a Matthew Stafford going to be a little, kind of a B plus A- type starter if there's a new GM coming into a bunch of these cities with old quarterbacks? What happens there? And then I think eventually you settle on Fields, because I think that, you know, listen, a new coach is going to want answers at the quarterback position. Taking the tackle from Oregon sounds good in theory to build up the lines. Joe Douglas loves toughness. He helped that Philadelphia team build through the lines. But I think at some point they just need answers. I understand the impulse for Darnold to have 1 year in a competent coaching staff and an infrastructure that supports him, but I just don't think they're going to be that good next year either. So what do you know? You just kick the can down the road and you're in the same situation next year. I think you try to get that fortress, and I don't know if it's necessarily coming, and if you can't do it, you just take Justin Fields and go from there.
So I've been saying this. Baseball's a lot of stat and history driven. Football's always been about just win games. And I think it's funny. So about 3 weeks ago, Ravens lost back-to-back, and the world bailed on Lamar Jackson. And I said, folks, he wins 79% of his games. He's younger than Joe Burrow. Okay, he's not perfect. Find me the guy that is. I think I could outrun Tom Brady today. What if the Ravens don't make the playoffs, and you're good at this stuff, the history, are they the best team to not make the playoffs? I can't think of anybody this good.
Well, they might be the most talented, especially roster-wise when you look at it in September. But this is an unprecedented season, Colin. I mean, you're looking at, listen, they basically had a month of the season wiped out due to COVID protocols, and they played a weird Wednesday game, same as the Steelers, by the way. It's been weird since then for them. And I just think that you sort of have to give them a little bit of a break in that sense. But it's not like they were setting the world on fire before. We saw them play the Chiefs, and they didn't get there. I think that the thing that Lamar Jackson still has, and it's something that I reported about last year, and I remember talking to guys in that locker room, is that when Lamar Jackson drops back to pass and starts accelerating forward, that you will see in linebackers' eyes or defensive ends' eyes, the defenders looking at their coaches and saying, I don't know what to do. I just simply have no idea how to process what's in front of me. And I think Lamar still has that. We saw that against Cleveland. We've seen that in flashes over the past couple of weeks. And so, yes, I think that somehow they're going to find a way to make the playoffs, even though there's just a lot of good AFC teams in the mix of that wild card. And I love what the Dolphins have done this year, and I love what the Browns have done this year. But I still think Lamar has that magic, and I think we got away from it a little too early. I think this is a really talented team.
Yeah. So, listen, the old saying is you are what your record is. Obviously, it's true. We have standings, but you're also what my eyes see. And we have a Kansas City team now that has had, you look at the numbers with New Orleans, 15 first downs, awful on third down, 42 to 18 deficit time of possession, and it's a field goal game. Sometimes, Kevin, the Chiefs were 7-4 in Week 11 last year. They didn't have a top 10 defense. Mahomes was like 18th in passer rating. I know they're great, but they trailed in all their playoff games. We've kind of anointed them a dynasty. And these dynasties in all these leagues never last as long. Seattle never got a second Super Bowl. I love Kansas City. But don't they look vulnerable in the last month and a half? Well, what do you see?
They look vulnerable when teams play perfect games and they still win. And so I don't think you can discredit that too much. I think that, listen, the Saints knew how to play Mahomes. They were dropping back. They were taking away those bombs. The pressure was as good as any pressure rate in football against Mahomes this year, and it ended up not mattering, okay? Patrick Mahomes wins around 90% of his games since the start of 2019 when he's down 10 points. The NFL average is 18%. That is ridiculous. That is not normal, Colin. And what the Chiefs remind me of is a UFC fighter who can do it all, and they can play any type of game. And we saw that Trey Hendrickson was getting in Mahomes' face all afternoon. It didn't matter. All of a sudden, they're running power option to Lev Bell. They're not throwing these huge bombs. Mahomes can get pressured, and it doesn't matter. The UFC fighter who can punch or wrestle or do jiu-jitsu or whatever it is, they can handle it. And that's what I think impresses people most about Kansas City is they can win any type of game. I mean, even with the defense, they create turnovers. They knew exactly how to play Drew Brees on Sunday, even if in the second half it wasn't perfect. I understand the vulnerability, but at some point, doesn't your identity become that you can escape these things? I understand at some point a team like the Bills might make a play in the fourth quarter and reverse everything, or it could be like 2 years ago against the Patriots where there's a jump off sides and all of a sudden they get screwed up. But I think their identity is they do impossible things. Patrick Mahomes makes the miraculous look normal every single year, every single week, and I think that at some point that becomes who you are.
Good stuff. Happy holiday. What's the next NFL game you're going to, Kevin?
It might be the Super Bowl.
All right. Well,
I don't know. I mean, it's a weird time to travel to an NFL game.
That's certainly it.
There's a lot.
Great seeing you. Great work. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Colin. Anytime.
So he gave you an amazing stat on Mahomes. Okay, that was an amazing stat. Mahomes wins like 85-90% of his games down 10. The league average is 18. I will top it. Well, I don't know if it's better than that. It's darn close at the top of the hour. I just saw a stat this morning. It's insane.
Can you tell us what team it's about?
No, I can't. Be patient.
Okay.
Can't just give it up. You don't give up gems. I don't tell it during the gold rush. They didn't go, the gold's right here. Dig. Right. You have to wait to find the gold.
Patience is a virtue.
All right. Coming up next, it looks awful, and then I thought about it, and everything's going to be okay in Philadelphia. It is with the Eagles. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Let the whole world sing along. Let the whole world sing along. Let the whole world sing along. Let the whole world sing along.
Hey there, it's Leanne Rhymes. These days it's pretty easy to feel way too overwhelmed and disconnected, not only from each other but ourselves. My new podcast, Holy Human, focuses on living our best, fullest lives by expanding into our most complete and whole selves. I'd love you to join me as I sit down with people who I've found to be some of the world's most inspiring and enlightening motivators, healers, and wise souls. Together, we'll make more sense of this crazy existence we all share, ourselves and each other. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com and everywhere you buy books.
Now that is true.
Nick Wright and Joel Klatt today, top of next hour, the herd hierarchy. So there's a lot of reasons why the NFL is so much more popular than every other league in America, and it's not really close. We see the metrics, a lot of different metrics, it's not close. Unlike baseball, it's got a zillion games. There's more urgency. Every Sunday feels like it matters. That's a big part of it. We bet football our whole lives. We've been betting football games. Somebody in America has. We don't really bet baseball and NBA. We do now more with, gambling becoming more of part of our fabric, but we've always bet it. It's really good on television. It literally, the field fits the box. But I think one of the under-discussed reasons the NFL is so popular is hope. You don't get stuck in quicksand with a bad contract to a baseball player. It's like you're not stuck for 9 years. You're not stuck in the NBA when you get a bad contract and a difficult player. The NFL players have less power and leverage than every other American professional athlete, and sometimes I think that's its strength. If the guy's a headache, you cut him. If a guy underperforms, you move off him. And a couple weeks ago I said, I thought the Philadelphia situation was so bleak. And then I watched Jalen Hurts Sunday and I thought, no, I've seen this before in the NFL. This is the sport of a silver lining. And Carson Wentz, the minute Nick Foles, the backup, won that Super Bowl, it's never felt comfortable. He's a young kid. I mean, if I took a week off and it was the highest rated this show ever was with my backup and they built a statue of the guy outside Fox, I'd probably be a little insecure. And Jalen Hurts was drafted in the second round. It's not like they drafted him with other needs, which they have, to sit and watch games from the sideline. The NFL style is moving into his style. Philadelphia is going to find room for Carson Wentz. How about we start with the Colts, go to the Patriots, keep your eye on Denver and San Francisco? I think they'd ideally like to get him to the other conference and not have him come back and burn him. Yes, it's a big cap hit for Philadelphia. But if Jalen Hurts is as good as potentially we've seen, he's free for 3 years. So the quarterback position, again, if he's performing at a division-winning level, it's not an outrageous fee for him. Wentz needs a reboot. Probably a new coordinator. Hurts needs an opportunity. And I think Philadelphia is going to find somebody who's going to buy that contract. I mean, good God, we woke up this morning and thought, wow, Pittsburgh needs a quarterback. It's like every weekend we're like, oh, that team's good. Oh, no, they're not. I mean, I've gone back and forth on Cam in New England 6 times this year. So the NFL is not the NBA. You don't get stuck for 7 years in quicksand or mud where you can't get off a contract. You can't get off you pay a pitcher a fortune, boom, Tommy John. Surgery. Now you can't fulfill your bullpen needs, your infield needs, and you're stuck with a contract. In the NBA, the players have more power. You can pay a guy a lot. He gets injured. He gets an attitude. He's hard to play with. So Doug Peterson talked about Wentz and Hurts. And listen, this is an eggshell thing. But the more I watch Hurts play and the style of the NFL and quarterbacks that move in their success, I'm like, maybe it's the best for everybody.
This is a situation where it's not, it's not Carson versus Jalen or Jalen versus Carson, right? This is a team that imagine each week and still have an opportunity to, pull this thing out and see what happens here in the next 2 weeks of the regular season. And, the team doesn't feel like, there's any kind of animosity between either one of the guys.
Carson Wentz should actually be cheering for Jalen Hurts because it speeds everything up. If Jalen Hurts has 2 great final games, and Philadelphia inside says, let's make a call to the culture Patriots. You think Bill Belichick's going to sit around with a rookie quarterback? I don't. And Wentz is better than Darnold. I don't. You think Phillip Rivers is really the answer against the Mahomes of Justin Herbert? I don't. So, 2 weeks ago this was bleak. I watch Hurts and I think, it's the NBA. It's the NFL, excuse me. It's fixable. So, NBA season starts tonight. KD, Kyrie getting a lot of love and publicity. I've said this before. I do not like loud teams. Philadelphia last couple years have been loud. A lot of talk. They've unraveled in the playoffs. The Houston Rockets are talented but a loud team. They've unraveled in the playoffs. Jimmy Butler's career was loud and headlines and I don't like and this. And then he moved to Miami and just became a baller, a leader. You didn't really hear a lot about Miami last year. They got quiet and good. In the bubble, the Clippers were loud. It was the Lou Williams strip club. Pat Beverly opted out. Chemistry issues. Doc in trouble. A lot of noise. AD's always been quiet. Lakers had veterans. They went to bed early. Lakers got really quiet in the bubble. James Harden's career has gotten worse as it's gotten loud. Story this morning, according to Shams Charania, at the new Rockets team he's playing with, he had a confrontation, did James Harden, with one player and threw a basketball at another on Monday. The good news, at least now he's passing. The point being is I don't like loud. I think teams unravel. And you know what? I'm not crazy here. Brooklyn's been loud and the season hasn't started. Kyrie saying, we don't need a coach. Kyrie saying KD's actually better closing games than LeBron. Kyrie saying the media, I don't talk to Pons. Kevin Durant having to dismiss the James Harden rumors and stories. I say the louder a Hollywood marriage, the sooner it ends. There is a little bit, you've got to be honest. Katie and Kyrie, there is a little Kim Kanye thing here. Just a little. Very good on social media. Very attractive. A lot of conspiracy theories. You never quite feel it's 100% stable relationship. I don't know. It just feels like it's going to be really fun, and I can't wait to watch it, and they're really talented, and it's really interesting. But go look over the last several years. You want to know who's quiet last year? Miami and the Lakers and Denver. Just quiet. They just bawled. Jimmy Butler's whole career was loud. They went to Miami, a city in which it can make quiet people loud. You didn't hear anything about it. It's just, I like my coffee. I like my teammates. It's like he became 58 years old in a year in Miami. Miami just had no distractions, no talk, having fun, bawling, Jimmy's coffee. Clippers last year got really, really loud, especially in the bubble. I don't know. KD Kyrie's going to be fun, but it just doesn't feel stable to me long term. One scoop, all it takes, mdrivestart.com. Digestive enzymes, protein, nutrients. Listen, we're all getting older. Doesn't mean we want age to define us. mdrivestart.com. One scoop every morning. Nice smoothie. Next, herd hierarchy on a Tuesday.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected? I have to make a deal with it. Or which challenges were too dangerous for TV?
Is it really blood though?
Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official Challenge podcast. Hosted by none other than me, your girl Tori, and me, Anissa. We're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge from two people who lived through all the chaos, insanity, and the drama. Plus, we're going to be interviewing producers, other challengers, and maybe even the occasional superfan. Which means you're going to hear things on this podcast that you will not hear anywhere else. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official
Podcasts on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health, and our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to you, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-hosts Catherine and Deep D as we seek truth in health. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Oh, on a Tuesday, second hour, top of it. Live in Los Angeles, this is the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. I am in such a good mood today. I had a terrific night's sleep. I sat home last night, the power of the NFL. First of all, NBA starts tonight, so I go home every night and have a game, which is unbelievable. And we've had COVID, we've had these staggered NFL games. So now we don't have a Thursday game, we don't have a COVID game. Now I got like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, nothing to do. Oh, the NBA starts. Joy Taylor's joining me, so it's just like perfect, right?
Very excited for the NBA. And I think there's just going to be... You know, the NBA is a lot about storylines throughout the season, and we have some great ones this year.
We do. Hopefully, cross your fingers. Last year, a lot of the stars got hurt early.
Yes, yeah.
Zion's back, and KD's back, and Steph is back, and I think it's really important. So here we go. So it's the Herd hierarchy. I got to tell you, just to show you how many good teams we have, Baltimore's not in this.
Do we get the stat now, too?
Oh, I'm going to give you the stat in a second. I love Baltimore. They're 11. It tells you how many good teams there are right now. Here we go.
Herd hierarchy.
Let's go.
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
Tampa Bay overcame a 17-0 halftime deficit to win. Why were they down 17? They're 4-3 in games this year. They've trailed by more than 10 points. Why are they always down in big games? Now, you could argue so was Kansas City, but Kansas City's got a much higher end at the end of games. Part of Tampa is their back end worries me. They're 8-1 against teams 500 or worse. There's a lot of wins over a lot of junk. Brady, it doesn't appear to me to be the issue. The issue is the back end's not good. The pass rush is inconsistent. They blitz a lot. They take a lot of chances, and their back end often does not save them on those blitzes. I have them at 10.
Number 9.
Tennessee. I'm going to give you a stat that is insane. You think you know all the good quarterbacks in the league. Since Ryan Tannehill got the starting job last year in Week 7, he has 67 touchdowns, 11 picks, and a passer rating of 112. Better than Mahomes. His yards per attempt, you think this is about, and I'm not saying he's better than Mahomes, you think this is Derrick Henry. Folks, Adam Gase is apparently an atrocious coach. Ryan Tannehill's playing his arse off. And Derrick Henry's unbelievable. Now, why are they ninth? They have no pass rush. They do not match up against the Kansas City. They just don't. This is a team that everybody that plays them, I don't think they match up with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. I think they make quarterbacks too comfortable. We got to come to terms with this. Ryan Tannehill is a top 10 quarterback in this league, and Adam Gase can't coach because I saw him in Miami, and I thought he was a stiff, and he's just not.
Number 8.
Rams. Listen, don't sell too much of your stock. There's a couple of things here that matter. They're one of only 2 teams in the NFL to outgain their opponents by over 1,000 yards. Vegas cares about that. They have the number 1 defense, and they've allowed the fewest big plays in the NFL. So it's a really good football team. Here's the problem. Jared Goff gets into these turnover tunnels, and in the last 7 games, he's got 8 touchdown passes and 12 giveaways. It is a problem. It's frustrating McVay. It may shorten his career in Los Angeles, but don't kid yourself. Jalen Ramsey allows them to match up with everybody in the NFL. You could put him on a Tyreek, you could put him on a DK Metcalf, you could put him on a Devontae Adams, and you know you're getting a pass rush with Darnold. So they're a matchup. They have some matchup symmetry with almost every good team in the league. Rams at 8.
Number 7.
Cleveland. I got to tell you, their offensive line is the best in the NFL. You know what they remind me of? Dak and the Dallas Cowboys his rookie year. Here comes Dak, best offensive line easily in the NFL, great running game, and you're not putting a ton of pressure on the quarterback, and Dak and the Cowboys go 13-3. Listen, Baker's humming right now. Without OBJ, he's a point guard, and he can pass to anybody. He's got time to throw. The running game is wide open. Play action pass all works now. 15 TDs, 1 pick for Baker. Since Odell's injury, I don't care what anybody says, he looks more comfortable. He looks like he's kind of controlling the offense. His body language is good. Doesn't have nervous feet. His confidence, his accuracy has gotten very good in the last 6 weeks. Browns at 7.
Number 6.
But Seattle's got a Hall of Fame coach and a Hall of Fame quarterback, and I would take them over Cleveland in a matchup, even though I don't like their offensive line. The reality is the Seahawks defense is on fire since Carlos Dunlap, who we loved, came over. Top 5 defense since he arrived, 28 sacks since he arrived. They've held each of their last 4 opponents under 20 points, and the running backs are healthy, which is when Seattle is scary. Carlos Hyde, Penny, Chris Carson. Now, their offense has been a little stagnant for a month as they reboot their defense, but I still like them a lot.
Number 5.
Miami lost to Seattle earlier. I don't think they would today. Is Brian Flores, are the Dolphins right now the best coach team in the league? Not saying he's the best coach, but are they the best coach team in the moment? I got to tell you something. They won last week, and they were missing 4 of their top 5 players. They were missing Myles Gaskin, Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki. They're only allowing 18 points. Tua is Drew Brees. He makes no mistakes. You're not going to get a ton of huge plays, no mistakes. He's the perfect quarterback right now. Now for Brian Flores, I don't know what it is. They lead the NFL in takeaways, 20 straight games with 1 or more. I don't understand the lines in the NFL. Vegas doesn't buy them. They're only a 2.5 point favorite over the Raiders. I don't get it. This to me is a top 5 team in the NFL.
Number 4.
The Saints. The last couple of weeks they've been gashed, but some of that is the defense is on the field for 42 minutes against the Chiefs. You're going to give up 400 yards. This really is a defensive story. They're a lot like Pittsburgh, except Breeze can still play. I wouldn't take too much out of the Kansas City game. Didn't have Michael Thomas. Breeze was awful in the first quarter off the rib injury. This is still a high-functioning team.
Number 3.
Green Bay. I'm going to know a lot more after this weekend against Tennessee. I know they're good. I know they play well with a lead. I know they beat bad teams. Can they go into the octagon with a Tennessee, with a bruising running game, and play from behind or play after getting punched? I don't know if they can. I will in less than a week.
Number 2.
Kansas City. 5 turnovers in 2 weeks. They're the most talented team, but I don't love what I see. Red zone defense, red zone offense been a little clunky in the last month. Listen, Kansas City was 7-4 through 11 weeks last year. They weren't the best team in the league until week 12 on. Right now, this second, Kansas City is number 2.
Number 1.
And right now, this second, Buffalo is rolling and is number 1. I think they have the best coordinator in the league, Brian Daboll. I think Josh Allen is frightening. I think they match up with Kansas City, and they've gotten better. I think if you go since week 7, 7-1, 32 points a game, second point differential, 400 yards in this moment. Now, do I love always loved their defense. No, but I like it situationally. Best team last 2 weeks I see. I cannot believe they dropped 48 on Vic Fangio's defense after a Steeler win. It was the perfect time for a letdown game. And they dropped 48 on at least a competitive Denver team. And Vic Fangio is a top 5 defensive coach in the NFL. And with that, I bring in my friend Nick Wright. Used to live in Kansas City. Probably won't sit well with him. Brought to you by Nick Wright. All right, Nick. Can you at least acknowledge that Kansas City is sputtering a little right now?
Sputtering?
Yeah.
Can we show the hierarchy again? Is that possible? I don't know. Because what I do know is that Kansas City went to the number 1 team and beat them. Yeah. They went to the number 4 team and beat them. They went to the number 5 team and beat them. They went to the number 10 team and beat them. Baltimore's not on there. They went there and beat them. Oh, but they didn't hang 48 on Denver? Is that the problem? They did hang 43 on Denver, though. 5 points is the difference. The sputtering, I don't know. They just completed the greatest road season in NFL history, Colin. Look it up. 8-0 beating the best team in the league, Buffalo, beating New Orleans, beating Miami, beating Tampa, all in their buildings, beating Baltimore. So, no, they're not sputtering. The offense could be better. That's why they only scored 32 points in New Orleans. What are you talking about? Sputtering. They've lost 1 game since before last Thanksgiving. 1 game.
Well, we see
out of your mind.
We see the sports.
Out of your mind.
Sports cars slightly differently. Now, you will have to admit, you had created this narrative out of thin air that Brady was an old relic. You needed to rust-proof the old car. It was sputtering down the road. His numbers with a new city, new team, new playbook, no coordinator, new roster are better than Aaron Rodgers last year with a new coach. Same team, same city, same space. Brady has shocked you how competent he is, has he not?
Well, competent. Yeah, competent. You know what? As you get older, competency is the goal. There's competency tests. Make sure you still be able to drive the car. So I guess competence is what we're shooting for here. No, I'd like to congratulate Tom Brady. He's 9-0 this year. And he's doing it all by himself. Because as we know, in Tampa, the rules are when the Bucks win, it's because of Brady, and when they lose, it's Bruce Arians and all of his terrible teammates' fault. So the Bucks 0-5, Tom Brady 9-0, put them together, they're 9-5. Colin, I told you after the Chiefs went to Tampa and won, that what was going to happen is Tampa was going to get in the bye, and then win 4 consecutive games going into the playoffs and be everyone's hot playoff team before losing in wild card weekend in the postseason. They are halfway home. The only thing that was surprising about that football game was that they were down 17-0 to the Falcons. If you don't have a pass rush, the Bucks will eat you up. If you do have a pass rush, the Bucks are drawing dead, which is why I'm going to caution you of this because of how much you love Tom. You don't want them to move up to the 5 seed. If they move up to the 5 seed and get Washington, they will lose. The Washington pass rush will beat them, and while they'll probably lose if they're the 6th seed and get Seattle or the Rams, at least it won't be as shameful as losing to a 7-9 Washington team, which will happen if they get the 5 seed.
Interesting about OBJ, it is not his fault. But we have all in our life had an older brother, a boss, a mentor that we kind of want to impress. So Baker comes to Cleveland, here comes a superstar, and I think he kind of wanted to make OBJ know he was aware of him. I'm not blaming either of them. But I do think it's indisputable. Baker's now the point guard. He can pass to everybody. He's more comfortable. His body language is good. This is not me blaming. He is absolutely a better quarterback without OBJ. When I watch him now, he looks totally comfortable. There's no pressing. You know OBJ, you like him. Is it possible? Right. Is it possible he was an issue?
You're right. No, you're right. You're right. This is the odd time where removing a super talented talented player has made the team function better. And I actually think it puts the Browns in a great position because Odell, if traded, that contract becomes super palatable. The guarantees are already paid out. The base salary is like, I think, 12 to 14 million a year over the rest of it. So I think at the minimum, they'd get a good second-round pick, if not a late first-round pick. And in fact, I might even be able to tell you, Colin, they might be able to get the latest first-round pick. How about the 32nd pick? How about a team that's going to win the Super Bowl? That's going to have Sammy Watkins coming off the books. That, could we see Odell follow the Randy Moss career path? Unbelievable start, odd second stop, and then an unbeatable third act. For Randy, it was in New England. For Odell in Kansas City, I mean, the rich get richer, possibly. Who knows? It's just something people are talking about. By people, I mean me. But yes, I do think the one thing you got right about the Browns all year was Odell. I do think that. I think everything else you were wrong about, but the Odell thing, I think you were right.
I really appreciate that. Nice. Okay, so let's talk about this. I understand people who like MJ over LeBron. First of all, he was the best player, he was the best looking, he was the most glamorous, he had the best shooting. Like, Michael it was just a force of awesome. Everything. Cool, glamorous, great. Triangle offense. It was Chicago, big city. And I understand it. And I also understand people who like the NBA more 20 years ago, even though the players are better now, because it was very tribal and intense, and the rivalry was like college football in the South. Everybody hated everybody. But I do think those people think the LeBron-MJ debate is over, and my argument is Anthony Davis, if you look at all the second-best guys to LeBron for the last 8 years, only one appears to have perfect chemistry and a perfect teammate, AD. You start looking at Harden and Steph and KD and Kyrie and Harden, and I look at this and I think, folks, this LeBron-AD thing, this could be a 3-4 year run? Am I nuts on that?
No. I mean, they're the overwhelming favorites this year. The only thing you're nuts on is when you were listing all of Jordan's accomplishments and accolades, you said best looking as if Kurt Rambis wasn't in the league at the same time. But that's either here or there. Listen, I think that it would be, I will take the Lakers over the field. I think the Clippers are not better. Do you know the best point guard on the Clippers roster? Chauncey Billups. And the second best is Ty Lue. And they're both coaches. So that problem is not solved. And out east, Brooklyn, to me, is going to be the most watchable team, the most interesting team. They are going to have the best offense in basketball. Kevin Durant is going to stake his claim, I think, once again, as arguably the second best player in basketball. But that team is going to be atrocious defensively. So bad, I don't think they get out of round 2 in the East. I don't think you can beat multiple good teams in 7-game series with defenses that bad. So now who are we talking about? Now you're talking about beating the Sixers, beating the Bucks, beating the Mavs, beating the Nuggets. So I am old enough to remember the consensus opinion being LeBron James chose Los Angeles because of his family, because of Space Jam, because of movies, because he's already accomplished enough. He doesn't need any more rings. He is in a different phase of his career. Maybe he chose Los Angeles because he had just an inkling Anthony Davis might shortly thereafter join him, and that they could win 3 championships in a row. Maybe that's why. It's just, another thing just some people are saying.
That OBJ Chiefs thing. Only you would come up with that. That's not good. It's not going to happen, but it is a delicious idea. And I thought to myself,
I mean, I'm just saying, if you're Brett Veach and Andy Reid, you have the 32nd pick of the draft, which this year they used on a running back who they didn't really need, and Sammy Watkins and his money's coming off the books, and you're looking at the draft, and you're like, well, there's a solid inside linebacker from Georgia, or Odell Beckham Jr. I'm just saying, I think Odell Beckham Jr. could fit. And I might be able to help him find a house there. There's some gorgeous areas. Great place to raise a family if Odell's ready to sell. down, I can talk to him about it.
Good seeing you, buddy. You're doing my show tomorrow. Nick Wright, multiple talented platforms.
You two have a great time off, buddy. Happy holidays.
All right, thanks, man. Nick Wright. No, it is interesting. You get to a point with Kansas City. This happened years and years and years ago when San Diego was really good, the Chargers. And A.J. Smith was a GM, and they gave up all their picks for Eric Weddle, who was a safety from Utah. And they had so many Pro Bowlers, like 10. Their takeaway was none of these guys can play. Like Kansas City now is like they figured out, they draft this, they draft that, everything's solid. You get to a point where some of these teams are willing to give up 2 or 3 picks to just get a star for 1 or 2 years. Listen, Kansas City, when you're in that Super Bowl window, it is kind of funny. One Super Bowl gets everybody 3 years contract extension. 2 gets you 6. Andy Reid's in his 60s. You go from, a champion. John Calipari's got 1. 2 at Kentucky changes everything. You can't question him. First one you can go, well, he had Anthony Davis. It's amazing 1 to 2 in Kansas City. You get that second one, and you're a legend. The first one is, well, Brian Billick won a Super Bowl. And not he's a bad coach, but I mean that's
no,
the
there's a big difference between 1 and 2.
Brian Billick and Tom Coughlin,
especially back to back.
Yep. Joy with the news. Oh, I gotta take a break.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
This episode is brought to you by Splash Financial. Don't let past student loans drown your future. Make a splash. Splash Financial is your student loan refinance destination, designed to help save you money on student loans. Their innovative technology gives you quick access to a best-in-class network of lenders, so you can get great rates and achieve your financial goals. It takes just 2 minutes to get a rate quote and doesn't impact your credit score. So what are you waiting for? Splash even offers a low rate guarantee. Go to splashfinancial.com/iHeart to start saving today. That's splashfinancial.com/iHeart and start making a splash.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff you should know. An incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Become the most interesting person you know now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Christmas Day, it's an NFL special as the Vikings take on the Saints. Coverage begins at 3:30 Eastern on Fox. Also available on NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video.
I can't get my hands around Minnesota. I can't get my hands around them. I haven't been able to all year.
I thought they were going to be much better.
So did I. I like their coach. I like their GM. Their playmakers on offense are good. Justin Jefferson's been unbelievable. The rookie receiver from LSU. I just totally whiffed on the Vikings. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Well, this Jets win Sunday has made things very complicated for everyone. The Jaguars are now in position to get the #1 pick and draft Trevor Lawrence. Head coach Doug Marrone is not thinking about that possibility just yet. He said the team is only focused on winning.
We're trying to win. I mean, we're doing everything we possibly can, and that's my job right now, and I owe it to the coaches and players. None of us are going to look at this in the future. I mean, no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Never mind, saying at the end of the year, but I do understand the question and appreciate it, but that's not the way we think. Myself, players, we're just too competitive.
He's right. He's not telling any lies. He's not concerned about that right now. They just want to go out there and play. That's what coaches and players do. It's up to front offices to figure out how to tank. Their remaining schedule and the Jets' remaining schedule is interesting, though. So the Jags, the Bears, and the Colts.
Those teams are playing for something.
They're playing for something, and they're playing better.
Yes, that's good. So what do the Jets play?
Jets play the Browns, and then they're at the Patriots.
See,
anything is possible.
Well, Browns would beat the Jets, but this is where New England goes with Jarrett Stidham.
It's totally possible. That was your theory, but the Jets went ahead and won.
I think Jags going to draft first. That's tough.
It's going to end up being
to your point, the Colts and the Bears are not only better in playing, but to your point, they're both playing their best football of the season.
Yes. So this is the current draft order. Jags at the top. Jets number 2. Bengals 3. Panthers 4. Falcons 5.
Now, Panthers are going to draft a quarterback, right?
No. I don't know. I would think so, but you have to. I think in that situation, you really have to love the guy.
Well, I think the Trey Lance guy that we're not talking about now, because we're now into the Zach Wilson from BYU, I still think Trey Lance, when I look at his video on YouTube, because I don't watch him play, I don't think he's played this year. If you watch his YouTube stuff, he looks fantastic. He looks like 2020 NFL.
I would draft a quarterback every year. Not in the high rounds, obviously, if you don't need one, but I would take a quarterback every year. Do you like Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I actually think it's a bizarrely good job. First of all, it's attractive to free agents because of cost of living, no state tax, warm winter weather. They have a ton of cap space. Trevor's going to be great. It's a southern player in a southern town. They really need a rock star quarterback. It's a college football town, so I think he fits there. And again, I think Trevor Lawrence makes the job really attractive to a coach down in Jackson. And that division's always been odd. It's not like you got Mahomes in it. It's not like you got Aaron Rodgers in it. That division's always been like year to year, somebody else looks good.
Look, I'm a big city cat. So I like Trevor Lawrence to New York more.
But this is an easier fit.
This is an easier fit, and this feels like Joe Burrow to the Bengals. Because Trevor Lawrence can come in right away and make things better.
Yeah.
I don't know that Justin Fields can do that.
Right.
And honestly, I think if this ends up finishing this way, it's just going to become a very interesting situation for the Jets overall.
Yeah.
Now, I probably would still take Justin Fields at 2, just because you kind of have to.
And I do think that's going to happen. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong conviction either way. Yesterday, I thought I'd go Darnold. You know, the more I talk to people, either one is, the Jets are going to be better next year. They have so many draft picks and so much cap space.
I still think even without Trevor Lawrence going there, I still think it's a good job. You're not going to get the best candidate because it's still New York, and you still have to deal with the New York media and the New York expectations, where you aren't going to have that in Jacksonville, and you're going to have Trevor Lawrence. But I don't think it's a bad job just because Trevor Lawrence isn't there. And at the end of the day, there's only 32 of these in the world, so people still want them. So the Steelers seem to have the AFC North locked up when they were 11-0, but now they've lost 3 straight, and their chances of winning the division are getting worse. According to Fox Bet, before last night's game, the Steelers were a huge favorite, minus 5,000. But after the loss to the Bengals, they're holding on by a much smaller margin. They're still favorite at minus 333, but the Browns are closing in at plus 275.
The Browns are going to win the division. They play the Steelers week 17.
So if the Steelers lose to the Colts,
yes,
the Browns beat the Jets this week, which we're assuming is going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, Steelers-Colts could go either way, obviously, but if they lose to the Colts and the Browns beat the Jets, the winner of the Steelers-Browns week 17 will be the AFC North champion.
Folks, Uncle Colin's going to make you a little money. Bet the Browns to win the division. It's an easy one. Browns are better than the Steelers by a lot. They're going to blow them out.
But if the Steelers beat the Colts...
No, that's not going to happen. No, that is not going to happen.
They're going to lose 4 straight?
Yes, they're bad. You're a Pittsburgh girl. This is painful.
They're bad. I am, and I've always been extremely honest and fair and very self-aware about the Steelers.
They're
very
bad.
tough on the Steelers.
They got smoked by the Bengals.
I mean, it was painful to
that
watch.
That game wasn't competitive for 3 of the hours.
No, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Finally, we love this. The annual NBA GM survey has been released.
I love it.
And a large majority of executives believe the Lakers will repeat as champions. 81% chose the Lakers to get the title again. The Clippers came in second with 11% of the vote. They also believe Giannis will win his 3rd straight MVP. And he got 32% of the vote. Luka came in second with 21%. And LeBron and Anthony Davis are tied at 3rd with 18%.
Okay, but do you have the one question? There's always the one question. Who would you build your franchise around for the next 5 years?
Giannis and Luka tied for best player to start a franchise with.
Stop on Giannis. He can't shoot. It's a shooter's league. I like him, but can we stop with this?
Here's what I'll say. Are you going to do like a preseason? Well, we can't do preseason because obviously the season starts today. Yeah. But maybe we'll get into some NBA predictions next week. I can tell you right now, I am not going to have Giannis or the Celtics in the final in the NBA Finals. Prove it! I am so done with that whole situation. Yeah. With both of them, great fun teams, great regular season teams. Do it in the playoffs, get to the NBA Finals, and then I will start putting them in those predictive spaces. Now, obviously, Brooklyn Nets haven't proven anything either, but I do think that they're going to be a lot better. Wright is right. There's no defense to be found. But I think that the offense will make up for that.
Yeah, I mean, if you go look at the roster of the Brooklyn Nets, it's a lot of guys that can score. Yeah, a lot of points.
And let's not forget what they were in the bubble. Like, a lot of those players are coming back, and a lot of their best players weren't even with them in the bubble.
Yeah.
LaMelo Ball was also picked to win Rookie of the Year, which I think is solid. I would go with Luka for MVP. I don't see Giannis winning a third straight MVP.
Yeah, I like Luka or AD.
I don't know. I think Giannis. I think LeBron will like cannibalize that MVP thing for. I mean, Anthony Davis would just have to have such an incredible season. I think, and Luka is just. Start and the MVP conversation starts as soon as the season starts. So
there you go. Joy Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
So excited. It's just a great time. I tell my kids, like, COVID's tough, but take the wins out. Silver lining it. Take the wins out. Tonight NBA starts. NFL season is never more important. Big bowl games around the corner. This the next 7 weeks are just going to be unbelievable. This is such a great and for a lot of the country, it's cold and you're stuck inside. You can't go outside, so the silver lining is going to be so many crucial games over the next 2 months.
I mean, there's some sports to watch every second of Christmas Day.
Every second.
Football and NBA.
Good stuff. Peter King is around the corner on a Tuesday. Joel Klatt next hour.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher. And on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you ever think about how you're gonna die? I think I'm going to choke to death, specifically on a Cool Ranch Dorito.
I'm definitely slipping in the shower. I'm for sure gonna die taking a selfie. Anyway.
Hey, I'm Gabby.
I'm Taylor. I'm Nika.
And we're the hosts of a new podcast called
Cadaver Gals. We're just 3 fun and flirty gals talking about all the fun and flirty ways that people expire.
Like how 3 people died because of a poodle.
And how you shouldn't trust your ex-boyfriend to help you get rid of a body.
We'll also find out about all of Nika's boyfriends.
That is untrue, and we will find out that Taylor's a horse girl. And Gabby is...
the best one.
Okay, Gabby. Basically, this podcast is kind of like Sex in the City if they only talked about dead people. Join us as we laugh, but mostly cry, in the face of death. We'll also learn how to grow as people through the power of friendship.
So listen to Cadaver Gals for your weekly dose of chaos.
Cadaver Gals is a production of School of Humans and iHeartRadio. New episodes out on Wednesdays.
Listen to Cadaver Gals on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Man, I love me some NFL. You know what I like too? We've talked about this. In the NBA, sometimes it feels like all the glamorous markets get all the players. Buffalo's great. Green Bay's great. Tennessee is great. New Orleans is really good.
Kansas
City's right in the middle of the country. As meat and potato cities are going to own this. Baltimore's really good. Peter King is joining us, NBCSports.com. And, Peter, what I love about the Bills, they have given Josh Allen so much support. They've done it the right way. And talk a little bit, if you could, for a couple of minutes, just about the culture in Buffalo. I said the other day, the difference between the Steelers and Buffalo, one of them won the Super Bowls, one lost. But Buffalo, if you go back 30 years, they've had a lot of good players, a lot of good coaches, a lot of good teams. But man, Peter, they are so rolling right now.
Colin, I had an interesting conversation with Jerry Hughes, who, by the way, the day that Sean McDermott walked into the building, January 15th, 2017, that's less than 4 years ago, Jerry Hughes is the only active player who was active in 2016 who is left of the 53 men on the active roster.
Wow.
The only active player then. So that's what we talked about. And one of the things that Jerry Hughes talked a lot about was how, basically this coach got to know everybody on the roster. And while it was not their plan to denude the franchise and totally bring it back up, when you have a coach who communicates with everybody, 1 to 53, or now 1 to 69 with practice squad, you have a coach that communicates with everybody 1 to 69, and you pick the right quarterback for your franchise. And there's one other decision they made. I was critical of Brandon Beane, the general manager, for giving up so much for Stephon Diggs. And the other night afterwards, I said to him, hey, Brandon, now Stephon Diggs obviously is the #1 receiver in the league statistically. He's playing absolutely great. He's a pure franchise receiver if there ever was one. He pointed out two very interesting things. Number one, he was under contract for 3 more years, whereas, you knew that DeAndre Hopkins was going to need a huge new contract. And so Stephon Diggs is under contract for a while more. And number two, they traded, in essence, an extra 4, 5, and 6 to get him, as well as their one. Minnesota took Justin Jefferson with that one. And so if you're just comparing the two things, you'd say, man, Minnesota got great value. And Minnesota did. But as Brandon Beane said, he said, look, we didn't know how much we were going to be able to work with the players in the offseason. Even if we take a receiver in the first round, how much is he going to be able to contribute opening day? That is the strength and the wise move of getting Stephon Diggs. He was ready to step in day one as a huge factor in their offense.
Steelers and Saints both have Hall of Fame coaches, better defenses than offenses, and Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and a quarterback that looks just about ready to go. The difference is the Saints feel like they're prepared for it. The Steelers feel like this morning they're not. Peter, what is plan B? Big Ben, I don't know if you turn this around. He just doesn't look like there's much left.
No, he looks old. And the worst thing I thought last night was, he was fairly inaccurate last night. And if you're going to be sort of a statue-like quarterback, you better be able to hit everything. And last night clearly he didn't. He had another interception dropped. You're showing some of the bad highlights now. Are you going to show the dropped interception that would have ended the game?
Yep.
But I do think I think you're absolutely right. The Saints, now we don't know right now if they're going to keep Jameis Winston and have Winston and Taysom Hill do a duel in training camp next year. We don't know that, but at least they've got a plan. And the Steelers know that Mason Rudolph is not their long-term guy. I mean, there's a slight chance he will be. But I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have to be in the market for a quarterback in the first round, wherever they pick this year.
So I had Jimmy Johnson on yesterday and Trent Dilfer, and Trent said Justin Fields is who you take if you're the Jets. He's not Trevor Lawrence, but it's not that big of a gap. And Jimmy said, I don't know, maybe I'd build a fortress with all those picks and cap space, give Darnold one more year, and if it doesn't work, just the next guy's going to have a nice unit of players. What do you think happens this morning? Where do you lean on that, Peter?
I lean on the Jets, just a gut feeling, because you don't even know who the coach is. Suppose they hire Eric Bieniemy as the head coach, and Bieniemy goes, I love Justin Fields. Or suppose you bring in Bieniemy and he likes whoever, one of the other guys. The one thing that the Jets can do at number 2, you're absolutely right, because a lot of people still love Sam Darnold. If you give Sam Darnold one more year and it is a disaster, you've got a high pick next year, and then you can stock up on your quarterback. And Colin, suppose you do one of two things. Suppose you stay right there at number 2 and take that great Oregon tackle, let's just say. Or you take that pick and you trade it down for, say, 2 1s and a 3, and you're still, say, in the top 10, and you got another 1 in 2022, in addition to your treasure trove of picks this year. So to me, I think the Jets, I understand that everybody in New York is hanging black crepe paper who loves the Jets. I get it. And of course you wanted that great quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. But if you can't get him, you got time to be smart. You've got a really good personnel guy as your general manager. Get a treasure trove of picks for that pick at number 2. The best you can. See if Darnold is still your guy. And if he is, all of a sudden now you have a great base of talent to surround him with.
Couple of minutes left, 2.5 minutes. Tom Brady, is he better, worse, or about what you predicted going into the final couple weeks of the regular season? Peter?
He's about where I thought he would be. Now, did I think he'd throw for 320 yards in one half of a football game against a very aggressive Raheem Morris defense? No, I didn't think he would do that. But you can see he's still got the ball in the arm to throw the deep ball, as you see the Antonio Brown, which is an absolutely picture-perfect throw. He's got a great group of receivers. And look, as I wrote in my column, he's not necessarily better than he was last year, but he certainly has. Last year, he had one of the worst skill position groups in the NFL. And now he's in the top 3. He's right up there behind Kansas City, I would think, in terms of skill position players. So Brady is in a great position, and he's going to be significantly better after 16 weeks this year, numbers-wise, than he was a year ago.
Yeah.
And I think he's every bit the player that he was a year ago also.
Peter King, NBCSports.com, Hall of Fame voter since 92. It's great seeing you. He's on the board of selectors for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Peter, have great holidays for you and the fam.
Thanks very much, Colin. You too.
You bet. New streaming service coming. It's calling Discovery Plus. It's called Discovery Plus, Food Network, HGTV, and some exclusive originals. Next year, U.S. only. It is interesting. I mean, the Steelers and the Saints, I was thinking about this morning, have a lot of similarities. Hall of Fame coach, defense better than their offense, Hall of Fame older quarterback, limitations throwing the deep ball. The difference is the Saints feel like they're kind of prepared for next year, and the Steelers don't. And I think some of that is on the quarterback. I think Big Ben has been needier. I think he's been a little more difficult. I mean, he got upset when they drafted a quarterback in the 3rd round. Drew Brees has been much more honest with the Saints front office and said, yeah, give Taysom Hill 15 snaps. I think, it's funny when a star leaves, can you have honest conversations with your older quarterback? And I think the Saints have honest conversations last 2 or 3 years with Brees. Brees got in a little trouble before the season with his teammates. They didn't run out to save him. Drew, you save yourself. The Saints haven't babied Brees. They've supported him, but I don't feel they've coddled him or babied Brees. They've supported him. They've had real conversations. Drew, you're getting older. We're going to bring Jameis in. We're going to Taysom Hill. He's going to get 10, 15 snaps. Those are real honest conversations that stars don't want to hear. Ben, it's been a little more coddling. They take a quarterback in the 3rd round, Ben's upset. I'd bring him in and say, stop talking. Or we'll draft one in the 2nd round next year. So it's one thing for Carson Wentz to be a kid and a team draft Jalen Hurts. I get the pain there. Ben's got rings, he's got money, he's got a legacy, he's not the same quarterback. So, when you have a star, can you have really honest conversations with him? And I think the Saints have been a little better at that, like, let's have conversations. And Drew's like, okay, I want to go on television. And you can just air it out.
Ben also can't stop talking about possibly retiring, so I don't know why it's even a conversation for the Steelers. I thought they missed it by not signing a solid backup this offseason. You saw what happened when Ben was gone. You had Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, and you almost made the playoffs.
Sam Darnold's got a spot. Darnold wouldn't be bad. Knows the AFC. Doesn't beat it much, but he knows it. All right, Joel Klatt will be joining us. Jason McIntyre will be joining us on a Tuesday. 1 more hour to go. In LA, it's The Herd.
I created the podcast Prodigy to find the answer to a question. Can genius be created? Many believe it can, because it's happened before. Was it a coincidence, or is it repeatable? In pursuit of the answer, I interviewed brilliant academics, social scientists, groundbreaking researchers, and the prodigies themselves to gain a better understanding of intelligence, skill acquisition, expert performance, and genetics. Disregard all simple explanations, because complex questions require complex answers. My name is Lowell Berlanti, and I'm seeking the answer to a very complicated question. What is the nature of our intelligence? Listen to Prodigy every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health, and our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to you, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-host Catherine and Deep D as we seek truth in health. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
At the right time, the right story can work magic. And right now, we could all use a boost. I'm actor Anupam Kher, and on my new podcast, Anupam Cares, I will share stories with you from my life, from growing up in the Himalayan foothills to acting in over 500 Bollywood films. I will also be bringing you stories of untold heroes from around the world to lift our spirits and remind us that anything can happen. Find Anupam Cares on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
About a Girl is a new podcast about the women behind musical legends, the ones who inspired, loved, supported, and challenged these icons on their way to greatness. These are 12 incredible, influential women, without whom the landscape of popular music might be very different. It's hosted by me, Eleanor Wells, and executive produced by Jake Brennan of Disgraceland, 27 Club, and Blood on the Tracks. Subscribe now in the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern. 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for The Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Streaming service called Discovery Plus starts next year, U.S. only. Exclusive originals and stuff like the Food Network. So usually the Klattster comes on Wednesday and we argue. My feeling is I'm going to try to bridge this relationship and find common good and common things we agree in with Klatt, because I don't want him to think I don't like him. Now, as his mentor, it's always going to be a little argumentative here, but let's bring in the voice of college football at Fox Sports. So let's get some common ground here.
I love it.
Will we admit, I'm going to throw this out to you. 3 of the 4 teams they got right, and the 4th team's just going to get blasted by Alabama, so I'm not going to lose sleep over it. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't think that you're wrong. And you know, I've said a few different times that I didn't think that there was a great choice for 4. You know, all these teams that are pretty flawed were arguing for this 4th spot as if they deserved it, you know, and, you know, I just, Notre Dame's going to go, and I think that they've got a better singular win than Texas A&M.
Yeah.
You can argue over, like, well, you know, they both lost bad to Clemson or to Alabama. Yeah, but Notre Dame at least beat Clemson. I don't care who was on the field. I saw that game with my eyes. It has to matter to some degree. So I think that they got the 4 teams right with what they were trying to do, which is this whole notion of, well, like, we're just going to get the 4 best teams. I do think, though, Colin, that this year, maybe more so than others, and I think you agree with me on this too. Like, it's more apparent the sham that the college football playoff is. Like, it really is just a beauty pageant, and it's so subjective that we knew back in late September who the 4 teams were going to be. As soon as the Big Ten announced, hey, we're going to come back and we're going to play and we're going to try to play a season, you and I could have just been like, okay, well, let's just have the playoff now. What are we going to seed them? Well, probably Alabama 1, probably Clemson 2, or vice versa. Then we're going to probably have Ohio State because they play less games, and then Notre Dame looks good. I mean, we knew what this was going to be. There was no access for anybody else. There was no avenue for this playoff for a team like Cincinnati or Coastal or any other team for that matter.
Yeah, the difference is that doesn't bother me. You lay awake at night struggling to sleep with that. I have no problem at all because I always watched beauty pageants as a kid, and I'm okay with it. And Joy Taylor was in beauty pageants, so I'm pro beauty pageant. Okay.
And very successful at it.
Yeah. All right, let's talk games. Clemson, Ohio State. I'm going to throw this out to you. So Clemson beat them last year. Dabo's poking them in the ribs.
Yeah.
Ohio State's backhand worries me.
Yeah.
But Clemson could be looking ahead to Bama. I think this is a pretty close matchup, and Clemson, Ohio State, I think it's close. Your thoughts?
I picked Ohio State outright last year, but I thought it would be a good game, and that was an incredible game. I don't think Ohio State is nearly as good as they were a year ago, and I think Clemson might be as good or better than they were a year ago. So I'm leaning towards Clemson in this one. One thing has been very apparent for me covering Ohio State this year, and it's that defense is not nearly what it was a year ago, in particular in the back end. In the second. And facing a team that have the weapons that Clemson has, and more specifically the quarterback that they have. Remember, the reason they beat Ohio State was because Trevor Lawrence decided to put a cape on his back and put an S on his chest and just flat beat him. And this structure of defense that Ohio State plays lends itself to a quarterback potentially getting loose. They're not great in coverage on the outside. They give up way too many big plays, and for those reasons, I think I'm leaning towards Clemson right now. But I will tell you, I think that Ohio State has the ability to line up and physically maybe pound the ball at Clemson. Remember, Notre Dame, even though those front seven players Clemson weren't in the ballgame, Notre Dame hammered them in the first meeting with their run game, Colin. And I think as the year has gone on, we have started to see that Ohio State can do that running the football. I mean, Trey Sermon ran for 331 yards last week against Northwestern, who came into that ball game as the fourth-ranked rushing defense in America. So I'm really interested to see how much ball control Ohio State can use to protect their own defense and keep Trevor Lawrence potentially off the field.
Can Notre Dame hang with Alabama? Do they do anything well or disruptive in the other semifinal game?
Well, I think that, listen, I like Notre Dame. You and I have been on the Notre Dame train all year. Yeah. I think that's been the common ground for us. This is a good football team. Alabama is in a different realm, I believe, than this Notre Dame team. And the one area that I think you need to be strong in order to compete with or potentially beat Alabama is that you've got to have an excellent quarterback and passing game. We've seen that with Ole Miss and their structure of offense with Lane Kiffin as their coordinator. We saw that in the SEC championship game with Florida and Kyle Trask putting up a lot of yards. I'm still hesitant to say, hey, Ian Book and Notre Dame can do that. Right? Like, they could just drop back and throw the football and gain that amount of yards against Alabama. I think that Alabama is too good for Notre Dame. Now, I think that Alabama could potentially have problems, even though I'll probably pick them in the championship game. They could potentially have problems when they have to face either Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. But I don't think Ian Book provides that type of concern that those elite players would in a championship game.
All right, let's talk Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Jets would obviously take Trevor Lawrence one. He's a rock star. He's an Andrew Luck, John Elway level player. Justin Fields had to transfer out of college. He's good. He's capable. I've seen him a couple times this year really struggle. What would concern you about Justin Fields? I know he's an athlete. I know he's got a nice arm. We all know Lawrence. I'm done talking about him. Justin Fields. What concerns you about him going to New York, going to the NFL?
Well, the one concern I have is that he tends to hold the football an inordinate amount of time. And that's partly due to the fact that he is so gifted as an athlete, so that he feels like he can make a play regardless of what's going on around him. He can get stuck because of that, because of his ability to make plays in those situations. He can get stuck on the first read and the progression at times. This is very, like NFL draft scouting. I don't think that this has a lot to do with the playoff. But Fields at times has pressed and wanted to create big plays this year, and that's hurt them. It hurt them against Indiana with the pressure that the Hoosiers were able to put on him. It hurt him against Northwestern. He banged up his thumb a little bit in that game against Northwestern and could not throw the ball efficiently. Part of the reason is because everything was sailing on him high. Didn't have Chris Olave out there. So I think there are certainly some concerns, and as we get into the draft process, I think that this year, unfortunately for Fields, in the back half of the year, has been some games that are going to hurt his evaluation moving forward, and I think that there could be guys that start to creep up and get considered for that number 2 overall quarterback spot. A guy like Trask, a guy like Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. We'll see what the evaluation is like about Zach Wilson at BYU, maybe even Mac Jones, by the way, at Alabama. He's going to get first-round consideration, and because of the struggles that Fields has had in the back half of the season, I think it will be called into question whether he's even going to be the number 2 quarterback taken in the draft.
Joel Klatt. Okay, so finally, there's a difference between wanting something and knowing it's going to happen. I think both you and I think the college football playoff will expand. I think we both kind of feel that for some COVID, some budget issues, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I have never been a believer. The argument I've always used on expansion is college basketball now lets everybody in except my alma mater, and we still argue for days about the team that didn't get in. So if you have a country club, it doesn't matter. The one guy that didn't get in complains louder than the people that did get in, so I don't think it solves anything, a college football playoff, except budget stuff. Are you a fan of the college football playoff expansion?
I am, and this is a brand new phenomenon. I have come on your show and argued that it needed to stay at 4 teams. I wasn't a huge fan of them creating a playoff in the first place. One of the things that college football used to have is this incredibly important regular season, and it had incentive structures and the ability to define yourself as a program with success that was outside of the national championship. See, as opposed to for college basketball, maybe some teams can say, hey, we've been to the tournament, so on and so forth, and I guess like different rungs within the tournament, you can kind of say this is the level of success we're having. But in college football, we have stripped the ability of any program to define themselves or define success for themselves outside of the college football playoffs. So, Colin, what's happened is that college football and everything about it and everything that's important about it has been shoved up to the top. And I don't think that that's good for the health of the sport long term. You know, there's only 6 programs that have won a college football playoff game. And those 6 programs finished as the top 6 finishers in the 2021 recruiting rankings after last week's initial signing day. That's Alabama, that's Clemson, that's Ohio State, Oregon is in there, LSU, and Georgia. And then the team that's right behind them in the recruiting rankings is Oklahoma. They've been to the playoff 3 times. So what we're going to get is we're going to get this perpetuating cycle that the same teams are going to be right back in this elite playoff year after year, and nothing else matters. We're going to have players opt out, teams opt out. We need to expand the importance of college football for more teams. So for me, it's about more access. And by the way, I'm not arguing that the 6 best team is going to win the national championship or deserves a shot at the national championship. All I'm saying is that for the health of the sport, for teams outside of this very select few, we need to expand the opportunity at least to define success for those teams. And for that reason, to me, it's not a fix of go to 6 or go to 8, because it's not about arguing for those teams. It's about expanding the incentive structure for the sport. So, Colin, I actually think we need to go to 14 or 16. I think bowl games should probably go away, and now we can at least have some semblance that we can define success for a greater number of teams.
Yeah, you know, I will say this. Some of these bowl games are a bunch of nonsense. The more and more, outside of about 4 bowl games, there's nobody at the bowl game. So the consumer's not interested whatsoever. All right, Klatt, that wasn't bad. You know, I always appreciate you put a few minutes of prep in before you come on our show. I could hear it today. The excellent prep by you. You're terrific at what you do. You have a beautiful family. And happy holidays, my friend. We agreed on a lot today. Happy holidays.
We really did. I'm thankful, by the way, that you allow me to come on your show, talk college football. I love college football. I love coming on your show. Joy, I love a bit. Answering with both of you guys, and I gotta tell you, there's not many hosts in America that would allow someone to come on, call him a weirdo, and do all those things. So thank you. You're the best, man. You really are, and I appreciate you. Happy holidays to everybody out there.
Right back at you, buddy. And I am sort of a weirdo, so I can own that completely. Joel Klatt is as good as anybody that's ever done what he does. He's just terrific. You know what Klatt does, and nobody knows this. Well, I do, and I think maybe you do. I'm not sure if he releases this. So after the game Saturday, Klatt goes and does a top 20. It's a cheat sheet for all of us in the business. And he rates the top 20. It's like this one sheet, and if you get it, you know the whole sport. You could not watch the game. He's got every little bit of information, healthy. And he showed it to me like 3 years ago, and it's like, oh my God, if you can't watch a game, it's so great. He is so into the details of this sport.
Add me to the email list, Joel.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. And you get it like Sunday, just like that. He gets off that flight, boom, goes home, does it, next morning you get it. All right.
This episode is brought to you by Splash Financial. Don't let past student loans drown your future. Make a splash. Splash Financial is your student loan refinance destination, designed to help save you money on student loans. Their innovative technology gives you quick access to a best-in-class network of lenders, so you can get great rates and achieve your financial goals. It takes just 2 minutes to get a rate quote and doesn't impact your credit score. So what are you waiting for? Splash even offers a low-rate guarantee. Go to splashfinancial.com/iHeart to start saving today. That's splashfinancial.com/iHeart and start making a splash.
Friends, Dancing with the Stars partners, and now podcast hosts. Backstreet Boys AJ McLean and Cheryl Burke bring you Pretty Messed Up.
This show talks about pretty much anything, everything, love, life. Drugs, sex, rock and roll, you name it.
Pretty Messed Up doesn't hold back. It's a hot mess with the guidance, mentorship, and watchful eye of their friend Renee Elizondo.
We get pretty deep and we just talk about everything.
Listen to Pretty Messed Up on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Really quickly, while I do agree with you that the top 3 teams are going to end up, one of those teams is going to end up in the championship, right? For college football, I like the idea of expanding it once so everyone can stop arguing about it. It's exhausting. But also, it gives teams and fan bases hope later into the season, and hope makes the whole sport a little more interesting. You know, like the tournament every year, we know that the top teams are going to be the ones in the championship. We know that. But just the idea that they might make it to the Final Four or the Elite Eight is exciting.
And the other thing is, I grew up with a bowl system. You can take about 3 of them. Outside of that, I love college football. I don't watch most of these bowls.
Yeah, it's a compensation game, and we all know that.
Yeah, we all know with the bowl system, when you got weed eater companies sponsoring bowl games and credit unions.
I think they still sponsor them, but just make them a part of the playoff.
Nobody under 80 is at a credit union, so like it's done. Okay, so let's just move on and do that. Okay, and I'm a college football fan, but some of these bowls, they're great for the community. It's nothing against small towns, but it's the bowl games.
A lot of them can still be sponsored. Just make them a part of the college football playoff so it's more interesting. So the Patriots are out of playoff contention, which means Cam Newton may only have 2 games left with the team. And after Sunday's loss, he took accountability for his performance this year and promised to be better in the future. In a post on Instagram, he said, "I'll be the first to tell you this year's been unacceptable in more ways than one, and the standard has been and is always been set, and unfortunately I did not live up to the standard that was at all times or consistently enough. With that being said, the answers are in the locker room, and one thing I do know about this bunch is the locker room is filled with guys who want to be part of the solution, including me. All things considered, you will not see any finger pointing or excuse making, but more accountability being placed on the guys and me to get the job done. I think I speak for myself and others when I say challenge accepted."
Well, I've been critical of Cam, but I'm going to say this. Patrick Mahomes would struggle with this offense. Patrick Mahomes would struggle. They have no deep threat. The receivers are all number 3s. They have no tight end production. So as great as Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers are, this is not a playoff roster.
Well,
it is not.
There's a reason why Tom Brady left.
Yeah.
And went to Tampa Bay, a place that is rich with offensive weapons.
Okay. Tom Brady, in his last 9 games in New England, was 4-6 if you count the Tennessee game, right? So what does that tell you? The greatest quarterback ever, who now is putting big numbers up. Like, they don't have the players. And I'm critical of Cam, but he's got nothing to work with here.
He has nothing to work with. The COVID situation definitely derailed the season a bit, because not only was he out, but when he came back, he wasn't 100%. I think overall, Cam Newton in New England made them extremely interesting. I always root for Cam, so I was all in on it. It was a great story. And I think he showed, even though there are no weapons there and it wasn't a great season, obviously, that he can adapt to a different system, which was a big question about Cam. Like, when you look at the entirety of Cam's career, injuries played a massive role in it, as sometimes they do. Some guys just don't have injuries, and they have incredible careers, and they don't have to worry about that. Cam has had to, and part of that has been how his style of play. But I think next year, I think Belichick has a plan for what they're going to do at quarterback. I don't think he's just leaving this the way the wind blows.
Yeah.
And I think Cam will end up on another team as a backup. And who knows how that ends up working out. So, the Patriots' former quarterback, Tom Brady, is a 14-time Pro Bowler in the AFC, but he will not be adding 15th in his first season in the NFC. The Pro Bowl rosters were announced yesterday, and he was not selected as one of the quarterbacks to represent his conference this year. The 3 quarterbacks from the NFC are Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Kyler Murray. Now, this may seem like a snub, but argue against those three.
Well, Aaron and Russell, absolutely. Kyler, when healthy, has felt Pro Bowl-ish. So if you take out his 3 unhealthy games, yeah, I mean, I don't have. I think Brady's my 4. So I think.
I just don't feel like it's a snub.
No, I think no. It's not a snub. It's not a snub. That's fair to say. It's not a snub.
No, he does rank second in passing yards. Rodgers is third. Wilson is fourth, and Kyler is seventh.
But I do believe Kyler is just more essential to his team's success. I think Matt Ryan in Tampa would be mostly the same. I really do. In Tampa,
yeah.
I think Matt Ryan in Arizona, that's a bad football team. And that's nothing against Matt. I just think Kyler is he is the essence of the entire football team.
Yeah, he is. How he plays is how they go. Tom is also third in passing touchdowns. Wilson is second. Rodgers is first, and Kyler is fifth. So he does have he's better in some statistical categories, but to look at it as a snub, I feel like it's dramatic.
Yeah,
it's a little bit of an exaggeration. He didn't make it have a better season. Finally, Kevin Durant will start his Nets career with a matchup against the Warriors tonight. The NBA is back. He said he's not anticipating any added emotion when he faces his former team.
There's no more of importance because I'm playing against my old teammates, and I just feel like the game of basketball is gonna have me on that level anyway. I try not to make myself bigger than the group, but I know what I add to a basketball club, and I felt that way with the Warriors. So it wasn't about me going to the Nets to try to prove that I can make my own thing, whatever the hell that means. It's just that I'm coming here to play basketball and add to a group of great guys.
I do feel like if it was Steph Clay and Draymond against him, it would feel kind of cool. Now it's Steph and Draymond and Clay's hurt, so I don't care.
I think Draymond might be out as well.
Yeah, then it's. But I do think if it was just the Warriors with Andrew Wiggins instead of Kevin Durant, and the Warriors won, it would be a little bit like,
Yeah, I mean, I think the added emotion for KD tonight is that he's finally back after being off for so long, coming back from that injury.
I'm excited. So the Nets are playing tonight?
Yes, Warriors Nets 7 p.m. Eastern, and then Clippers Lakers tonight as well. And the Christmas Day schedule is essentially all day, along with an NFL game.
I'm excited about that.
The Vikings Saints. Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to this NBA season. Really watching the Nets. I agree with Nick Wright. I think this is going to be a season that Kevin Durant reminds everyone that he's really good, really good, and will establish himself as the second best player in the league again. The defense makes me nervous, but I'm excited to watch them either way.
So am I. Enjoy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
We've had a good day today. Kevin Clark, Nick Wright, Peter King, Joel Klatt, and Jason McIntyre's got his NBA predictions. Tomorrow's headlines today. This will be funny.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
News with a new perspective. I'm Morgan Wood in Washington, D.C.
News with a black perspective. I'm Mike Stevens in Tampa.
The Black Information Network is the first all-news audio and digital network
For and by the black community.
dedicated to 24/7 news and information.
I'm Julius White in Atlanta. Get the podcast and get the biggest news and business stories delivered to you every morning.
I'm Vanessa Tyler in New York. Subscribe to the Black Information Network daily.
And wake up with the latest from the Black Information Network.
Loaded and ready to go when you are.
With reporters across America bringing you the latest news, traffic, weather, and sports. I'm Doug Davis. From Las Vegas.
Delivering breaking news that puts us first.
Because our insight matters.
Our stories matter.
And the truth matters.
And the Black Information Network Daily is designed to inform, engage, and empower the Black community.
Now is our time.
Listen to the Black Information Network Daily on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Williams, and I love being able to share my story with you on my podcast, Checking In with Michelle Williams, where my guests and I get real as we share the ups and downs of our mental health journeys, and I'd love for you to join me. I'm still on my own journey, but I want to be transparent with you, because as I was posting all the highlights of my life on social media, I was breaking down. And too many people fall victim to the picture-perfect image of the high life, so I created a space to discuss the good and the bad. We can laugh, man, we gonna learn, and most of all, I hope to inspire you to go on this journey with me to better mental health. This is gonna be your church, your turn-up, and everything in between. So join me on my podcast, Checking In with Michelle Williams, a safe space for every kind of person. Listen to Checking In with Michelle Williams every Tuesday. Black Effect on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My gift-giving tip, a RecTech grill, perfect for the family, rectechwithaq.com. Master Chef Indoors with an app on your phone, RecTech. All right, Jason McIntyre is now joining us, usually on Friday, now on Tuesday as the NBA season starts in earnest tonight. We call the tomorrow's headlines today's former newspaper guy, so we predict what the headlines will be, and let's start with this one. Jason, tomorrow's headline today, what is it for the championship Lakers this year?
Very exciting out here in LA. Will they be able to win another title? The headline will be Bron and Brow go back to back. LeBron and Anthony Davis are going to win the title this year. We know that, Colin. They are the heavy favorites according to the gambling markets. But you talk to people in Los Angeles and there's some concern because everybody in Hollywood knows that the sequel is usually crappier than the original version.
Right.
But I don't see that happening here. The Lakers have made a smart move, right? They were a defensive-minded team last year, right? Frank Vogel, great defensive coach, third in the league in defense, first in blocks. It's a great defensive team last year, but what they do, they got rid of Avery Bradley, Danny Green, Rondo, Dwight Howard, and they've pivoted to be an offensive team with Schroeder and Harrell. And Colin, this is because LeBron, we know, is going to sit out a lot of games this year. He's 36 years old here in a week. I know you're going to be celebrating his birthday, such a fan, but with Schroeder, Harrell, this kid Talon Horton-Tucker, who I'm sure you've heard about, the Lakers are going to be able to survive without LeBron. They're going to win the title again, Colin.
I don't disagree, by the way, and I think it's a good point. They're pivoting a little bit more to an offensive team than a defensive unit. Tomorrow's headlines today is the NBA season opener. Tonight, what are the headlines going to be for James Harden this year?
Yeah, a lot of jokes about James Harden. Joy Taylor is going to love this one. The headline will be Riley caught between rock and a Harden place. I'm telling you, I know talks have cooled over the last couple days about the Rockets and the Heat, and I've heard all the James Harden jokes. James Larden, okay? James Harden can fit in anywhere except his pants, because he's gained a couple pounds here. But Colin, this is a play against the Miami Heat. I think they exceeded expectations last year, right? In the bubble. They're built for the bubble. There's going to be a little regression here. I heard from someone around the league, keep an eye on Jimmy Butler. He was exhausted in the NBA Finals. You could visibly see that. And, there's a little concern about Tom Thibodeau players as they ease into their 30s. We saw Luol Deng fall off a cliff. Joakim Noah fall off a cliff in his 30s. Jimmy Butler spent a lot of hard years in Chicago. Are we going to see some regression? And Pat Riley loves a star. We know they couldn't get Giannis because he's staying in Milwaukee. We'll get to him shortly. But if there is Miami around the 6th or 7th seed, I can see them making a play for James Harden and going all in to get back to the finals.
I think it's a really, really interesting point. Tomorrow's headlines today. What's it going to be for Luka Doncic and the Mavs this year?
Oh, yeah. Everybody loves Luka. The headline will be, it's beginning to look a lot like MVP season.
He's good.
Come on. Listen, Colin, the betting markets have him as the favorite. The favorite. He's 21 years old. Wow. No Giannis is the favorite. Luka, there's so much to love about this kid. And I know I heard you guys talking about, Kevin Durant's coming back. Like, listen, this is a guy who's coming off an Achilles in his 30s. Luka is the guy to watch. They put him on Christmas against LeBron for a reason. He's got next, as the kids say out there. I love this kid, Luka Doncic. He makes it look so easy.
Yeah.
And you know what I love, Colin, is the toughness. You remember that series against the Clippers? Porzingis gets hurt again. Porzingis, by the way, will start the season out. And Luka was unfazed. He went toe-to-toe with the Clippers. They're roughing him up, talking trash. All he did was hit a game winner in their eye. I love the toughness, the smarts of Luka Doncic. He's your MVP this year.
Yeah, points come easy for that kid. Transition, down low, jumpers. He's going to be a top 5, 8, 10 scorer all time about 15 years from now. Tomorrow's headlines today, what's it going to be for Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks?
Oh! Boy, all right, we spent all summer. What's Giannis going to do? Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? The headline will be, shouldn't have signed my big fat Greek contract. And listen, I like Giannis a lot. Seems like a good guy. He's staying in Milwaukee. But Colin, there are contestants on The Bachelor who have a better chance at the ring than Giannis does. Okay, he's not winning the title this year. I don't have them getting to the finals. Okay, when you're banking everything on your offseason getting better by attaining Drew Holiday, who's a nice player, right? He's a solid guy, great in the community. Colin, he's a one-time All-Star. Is he really putting over the top when we saw the Nets get better. Okay, we've seen other teams in the East on the rise. Philadelphia, I'm very bullish on. I don't love the vibe of the Bucks heading into the season. We know they're going to win a lot of games, right? Budenholzer, great regular season coach. The last 2 postseasons, he's got coached into a body bag. Okay, first against Toronto, and then last year against the Miami Heat. I don't like their prospects. Colin, somebody made a joke to me. There's only 2 things where a supermax is mentioned: NBA contracts and prisons. Did Giannis just sign into a prison in Milwaukee for the next 5 years? The good news is you can force your way out of NBA contracts, as we've seen. I don't love Milwaukee this season.
All right, yeah. Well, I mean, Joy and I have said we're kind of tired of the promises. We'd like to see some results, so I actually agree with you on that. Tomorrow's headlines today for one of my favorite players in years, Zion. Love him. What's the headline?
The headline for Zion Williamson will be "The big guy makes it look big easy." Colin, it's funny. We talk about Luka Doncic. We talk about Kevin Durant. Are we almost forgetting about Zion Williamson now? I know that sounds crazy. He was awful in the bubble. Showed up a little overweight, didn't not play well at either end. Colin, I know you don't watch NBA preseason. We talk about this. You refuse to do that, and I get it. But Zion Williamson quietly is playing more minutes in the preseason than he played in the NBA regular season. They said, enough of this learning curve, Zion. We've got to get you playing big minutes this year. He's 25 pounds lighter. I'm telling you right now, there's like no buzz around the Pelicans. Keep an eye on Zion. I've got them getting to the playoffs in the West. Maybe the 6th seed, we'll see. The West is tough. But this kid, Zion Williamson, I think we see him with the ball a lot more. I like Zion Williamson a lot. It's a quiet vibe in the Pelicans this year. Right? It's like you haven't spent a lot of time on it. A lot of Kevin Durant, Giannis, Luka, LeBron. Talk about Zion, Colin. He's about to blow up.
And also they threw a bunch of players together last year, and so to be honest with it, you got to even Aaron Rodgers needs a second year with his new coach. I mean, it was just everybody just threw the Pelicans together, a rookie and Ingram and Lonzo. It's like, let's give him some time to bake. Okay, Jason McIntyre's got Straight Fire with Jason McIntyre, a podcast every day with iHeartRadio. It's great seeing you. Always love having you on the show. I don't know what
Happy holidays.
Next 4 or 5 days. Enjoy it with your fam, man.
You too, buddy.
There you go. Yeah, I'm excited for tonight. NBA stuff. I'm going to go a little skiing this week. Just a couple times. Not going to come back all beat up, but we're just lucky. This is such a weird year. So when is the Ohio State Clemson? Is it Saturday?
It's
January 1st.
Yeah, January 1st, Friday.
Okay. So Friday. Oh my God. What time is it on? Anybody know what time it's on?
It's 1
Eastern.
Yeah.
That's the second. The other game is early.
Yeah.
So 1 p.m. Eastern, Ohio State Clemson.
8 Eastern.
Oh. 8 Eastern. I don't.
The other one's early.
All right. Oh, so I gotta go. I got a Friday, hang out with my family. Oh no, this is the next.
It's you're gonna be working. It's a New Year's Day bowl.
You're not working New Year's Day?
I don't know if I do or not. Okay, it's hard to find. I don't know when these games are all played. I figure out the day they're played.
Yeah, Notre Dame, Alabama's 1 p.m. Eastern. Okay. I'm sorry, 1 p.m. Pacific.
Okay. All right, I'll figure it out. I'll be there. I'll be there when the game's played, and I'll watch, and I'll talk about it the next day.
Exactly.
Remember when you were a kid and you had like a TV guide?
Yeah, now we just have the internet.
That's it. I don't go. You know what? I do this all the time. Because I've never been somebody. People ask me all the time, when's the game? I'm like, I don't know. I wake up every morning. Every morning, this is what I do. At some point, I'm done prepping for our show. I have breakfast. I go, and I look up sports on TV tonight. I do that every day of the year. And so then I find out what games are being played tonight.
This is the sad 5 months for you with those sports.
Yeah, it was brutal. But that's what I do every day. Like, what's on tonight? And then I watch it, and then the next day I talk about it. That's what
we do here.
That's what we do here. All right. Discovery Plus, all the shows you love, favorite brands, Food Network, Discovery Channel, and exclusive originals too. All coming next year, U.S. only. All right. Joy, have fun with Nick Wright tomorrow.
Thank you. Have a good Christmas.
Same to you. And John Goulet, are you going to Connecticut or hanging out? You're going to Connecticut. All right. Brave the winter, my friend. For everybody, thanks so much for joining us. Please be safe. Enjoy your fam. In L.A., it's The Herd.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Williams, and I love being able to share my story with you on my podcast, Checking In with Michelle Williams, where my guests and we get real as we share the ups and downs of our mental journeys, and I'd love for you to join me. Hey, it's going to be your church and your turn up. So listen to Checking In with Michelle Williams every Tuesday, a part of the Black Effect on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health, and our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to you, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-host Catherine and Deepti as we seek truth in health. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.